How do you make a comedy album funnier than it already is? Put a comedy album inside it. Right now, I want to talk about 6 meta comedy albums that I absolutely love. I'm Jason Klamm, and this is Comedy on Vinyl. Now I feel like I should maybe sort of amend that. Absolutely love is not true for one of these. I'm only recently discovered was what it is. So, and it's not that great of an album. So 5 albums, meta comedy albums I really love, but there are 6 meta comedy albums. And just to define what I'm talking about, a meta comedy album is a comedy album that essentially knows it's a comedy album, which is typically going to be only accomplishable through sketch, though some of these, 2 of these as a matter of fact, are a mix of sketch and stand-up. So I can't say it's exclusively sketch, but it's also hard you might call those experimental, these records that are not strictly stand-up, and some of them are my favorite comedy records of all time. I want to start with one that doesn't get talked about that often. Number 1 this week is Lily Tomlin's Modern Scream. Now, the thing about this record is it's a solid mix again of there's stand up, her stage bits, she did character performances, so you can call it stand up, whatever you want to call it, but it's that mixed with sketches about her being interviewed about her career, and so it's meta in that it is clearly surrounding the release and making of the record. It is not explicitly stated, but this record needs to be talked about more in general. But it becomes a sketch album because she's doing sort of sketches on stage in character. You really can't necessarily call it stand-up, but there are actual live bits in it, and then it is interspersed with studio-produced sketches where she is being interviewed by herself, by the character she's playing, about her own career, and she is listening to the bits, so you can assume that she's then listening to the album in progress or the album that is maybe completed, which the meta-ness of that I absolutely love, obviously, because that's what we're friggin' talking about here. Also, 1975, we're going to say that one more time, actually. 3 of them came out this year. Albert Brooks's A Star Is Bought. Now, some people might say, well, where's the 8x10 glossy that comes with it? I have the insert. It's somewhere else. But this is how you would see it if you bought it, because it says free inside your personally autographed 8x10 glossy. With obviously, that's a great picture of Albert Brooks with a printed thing. Now, this is, again, very, very, very meta in terms of it opens with the kind of record this is going to be. Okay, it's mockumentary style, and they're telling you what you are in store for. Obviously there's no way to prepare you because there are parodies of so many different types of records in general, including comedy records, but the mockumentary style on a record I really, really, really like. And again, it is about the record you're about to listen to. It's got clips. It is in potentially a record within its own universe, which I believe they talk about it in specifically. But again, it's very meta, again, because it tells you you're listening to a record, which is a common thing in these types of records. And this one is a classic. We're also going to talk about his other record, his other big record in a moment. This one, number 3, is one that I am really shocked that I didn't know about earlier. It's 1981's The Great White North by Bob and Doug McKenzie, a.k.a. Rick Moranis and Dave Thomas of SCTV fame. First of all, okay, yeah, so there are 2 songs on here, 12 Days of Christmas and Take Off, featuring Geddy Lee. Geddy Lee is on it, and you hear him talk because the development of the record there, the development of the record is on there. At one point, Rick Moranis says, "Oh yeah, this is the hit single section of our album," and they do a song called "Take Off." Now, if you don't know anything about these characters, they were created as a response to Canadian content laws, or CanCon, where I don't know what the percentage was at the time, can't remember what it is now, but Canadian broadcasting requires a certain amount of Canadian content. And their logical extension of it, their extreme extension of it was, well, let's make it a ton of Canadian stereotypes. Ironically, of course, these became the most popular creations of that show. So they both did a service to themselves and a disservice to Canada at the same time. It's not true. Everybody knows that, this is not what a Canadian is, but it is also definitely what a Canadian is. It also has an act-along portion, which I had the insert for in my hands 2 seconds ago. It has an act-along portion where you get to be on the record. You are our guest. So it is actually, I can pull it up right here. This is the Daily Hoser, by the way, is the quote unquote newspaper that's in here. And if you look on it, be a guest on the Great White North. So Bob and Doug speak, and then you are supposed to read the following lines. G'day, how's it going? No, Bob, I'm pretty comfortable. No, thanks, Bob, I just ate. Say, you guys like my toque? I almost said tongue because I misread it because of how it's printed. Anyway, Doug, don't you like my toque? Excuse me, can I say something? Listen, you hosers, the only reason I came on this show is to tell you guys that the idea of having me as your guest is stolen. You know what? I love that because we'll get to that, but that is a concept that is not new to comedy albums or albums in general. There were a series of records that you could watch at one point. Listen to, where you could perform along with famous actors or semi-famous actors, and you got the script, you listen to them, and you could do, I don't know, Shakespeare with a famous actor. And then that was the thing, so goofy and so silly that people definitely played with that in records. This is definitely not the first time. I think the earliest the earliest is probably another Monty Python record. I think it's another Monty Python record where there is the same sort of thing, an act along with a script. And then Albert Brooks's Comedy -1. There's a huge portion of it. The whole point of it is that it's a big script that you're supposed to read along and do the bit with him. And it's a gag. It's also like this kind of it's almost this sincere homage to this weird. It's hard to tell with Albert Brooks, but it's delightful, and this is a fantastic record. And the meta-ness of it goes throughout the whole thing. I'm talking about it a lot because I genuinely love this record, and it's the entire thing is hilarious. I think it ages pretty good, and they're talking about making the record the whole time that the record is going on. Now, if you want to talk about records that I don't necessarily care for, or, it's not one way or the other, it's fine, is 1962's The President Strikes Back by Mark London and Mike Harvey. This one I talked about a few weeks ago, and it's worth bringing up that, they play the record on the record, and that's a fun gag. Because I think that's the TV commercial portion, if I'm not mistaken. And so this is a ripoff of The First Family, but they play a clip of this record or another record that's made within it. It's all about the making of the comedy record, actually, but they actually play a clip from the record they're making in it. And that is the only funny bit, at least to me. I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. Now, the next one is one that I do not own, but it is 1975 again. Monty Python's The Album, the soundtrack of the trailer of the film of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Now, you're given an introduction by Graham Chapman, who tells you the sort of filth that you will find on this album. 4 cunts and a foreskin, but those have passed already. So you've already been through it, so you're fine. This record takes place during a screening of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. So there are clips during which the Monty Python people, as reporters, are speaking over them. That's really all you need to know. It is the greatest soundtrack album I've ever heard because, again, they're playing with the idea, the absurdity of why would you do a soundtrack album to a comedy movie. But they're putting clips from the film in it. There are I think a few unsullied clips. The rest of them are either talked over or they're also just plain old sketches on it. But they're all roughly surrounding this premiere of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, which is fantastic. And it opens, if I'm not mistaken, there's a lot of sexual activity going on when John Cleese is reporting from inside the theater as the movie's going. Sexual activity, both 2-part and 1-part, if I'm not mistaken. It's one of the better soundtrack albums that's ever been released. Now, number 6 is one that I, full disclosure, play a part in releasing. At least I did after the fact. This was released in 2017. It is Jared Jeffries and Peyton Brown's A Gift You Never Asked For from Friends You Never Had. This is heavily Firesign inspired. These guys are big Firesign fans. You can tell that by the voices they do. You can tell that by the way it is edited. And very much by the way that it knows that it is a record. That's one of my favorite things. I honestly don't want to give away too much of it if only because you can't get this digitally, and it's worth the vinyl experience. It was made to only be listened to on vinyl. That's why they sent it to me, and that's why I decided I wanted to release it. And you can get that at celerysoundrecords.com. It is I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the notes because I don't want to burn all of the jokes. But it does open with "Thank you for purchasing this record," and things like that. They tell you it will never be obsolete, which is borderline true, actually. I can't even go into describing why the line, "Oh, it's a real burglar's dilemma," is so funny, but suffice it to say, it's about a bank being robbed, and I can't take the gun and the cash. I can't leave with it. It's that, but then it's a real burglar's dilemma. Character dies, goes to heaven. That's a huge part of it. That is basically the inciting incident of the record. And he's told Descartes doesn't exist. He never existed. France was invented by cartographers to sell more maps. And one of my favorite parts on it is one character who is talking and responding to somebody, but only for a moment when he finds out that he's pre-recorded. That is maybe the ultimate meta joke on a record. There's a lot of really good stuff in all of these, but arguably none of them have put as much thought into their records in terms of like the meta-ness of it, where it is definitely a part of it, where the rest of them were like, it'd be a funny gag, but this whole album is about that, and that is, again, why release it. It's not an advertisement, really, because I don't make any money off of the release. It's something I just wanted to get out there, so it's worth picking up. I don't see any of that money. It goes right to the artists. So celerysoundrecords.com will send you, it will actually give you the link to their Bandcamp to buy the vinyl only. Well, there we are. Those are 6 meta albums that I love. Well, 5 albums that I love and 1 that I tolerate because it's got some really good stuff in it. I really, really, really want to thank you for joining us or joining me this week, however you want to look at it. And you can follow on Comedy on Twitter at Comedy on Vinyl. Facebook is Comedy on Vinyl. Instagram is Comedy on Vinyl. ComedyOnVinyl.com. You can follow me, Jay Klamm, on Twitter or Jason Klamm on Instagram. Huge mistakes. JasonKlamm.com, KLAMM. And patreon.com/stolendress, where you can find video versions of the audio episodes of the weekly podcast that comes out the same day as these videos do. Thank you so much for joining me, and as always, have a good thing.
Hey, it's my turn. Ah!